toasting, joking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and video extravaganza known internationally as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. It is nice to have you here for show number 276, as we are just
That's halfway to 300,
halfway to 300. That's very exciting. Welcome to it. We're the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We'll be talking all three of those today, and as a matter of fact, we're going to be talking a lot about cigars because Jason Pohler is here with us, and Jason is a representative for a number of brands, including La Aguilera and a cigar company you may have heard of called My Father Cigars.
Yeah.
So welcome, Jason. We've had your brother Tom on the show before. In fact, we've even traveled with him, which was a lot of fun. Although it was interesting. As we hung out with the Eureka family, it was interesting. As the days went by, they became a little more and more free to say what they really thought about Tom.
I bet the alcohol was flowing.
It was indeed.
Yeah, it's a nice lubricant.
But he's absolutely loved, and we had a wonderful time.
They love Tom, and he's very good for them, and they're very good for him. It's a wonderful pairing for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Speaking of pairings, we're going to talk a little bit about pairings today. In fact, there's a new, it's not new, but there's a brew pub in North Texas that has started a new system of pairings. And I think you're going to be excited about this, Ian, because they're pairing craft beer with Girl Scout cookies.
Oh, yeah, of course.
This is win-win, right?
Right.
So we'll talk a little bit about what their recommendations are and tell you a little bit about them. Plus, we'll be tasting some beers of our own today from Equal Parts Brewing right here in our hometown of Houston, Texas. We'll be trying their Dot Matrix Black Lager.
Equal Parts has been just silently coming into the community.
They've been killing it, I'll tell you. Yeah, they really have.
I'll be interested to try that.
So very excited. One of my favorite breweries in the world is Parish Brewing Company out of Broussard, Louisiana. And we'll be trying their DriveThru Tiger Blood. It is a Berliner-style ale with all kinds of things in it.
That should be interesting.
And it was inspired, the reason I call it DriveThru, it was inspired by, and I remember this from when I lived in New Orleans years ago. In New Orleans, they don't have just one. They don't have just two. They have at least a dozen different chains of drive-through daiquiri shops. And when I say drive-through,
Right.
I mean it's just like going to Wendy's or whatever.
Right. Order
you
your
drive
daiquiri.
through, you order a daiquiri, they hand it to you, you drive away drinking it. That's the way it works in Louisiana.
It works in Dallas too. There's one in downtown on Riverfront.
Right.
And I could attest to the strength of their daiquiris. And they also sell Jello shots.
Oh yeah, well there you
Which
go.
I've always scoffed at, but that one daiquiri from them and one Jello shot ruined the rest of the day for me.
So let me ask you this: it's not legal for you to drink them though while you're driving?
No, it's not an open container at all. They leave a little piece of paper right on the top of the straw. So it's a closed container.
So it's a closed container when you get it. What you do with it after that is
That
your
is
business.
true. I couldn't believe it's there. But
On
it's
the
there.
corner, right before you get to the beach at Freeport.
Yes.
There's a little shack right there that does that. You just drive through.
They are plentiful in Louisiana, I can tell you, and it's the only thing you'll see more of than drive-through daiquiri shops in New Orleans is Popeyes Chicken locations.
I love New Orleans, but they know how to drink. I have a cigar store. He's still there, but he doesn't drink anymore. He had some health issues, but I had to bring at least a 6-pack with me to every sales call.
Every time you went into the store.
And it's just many years ago, I showed up with one of my manufacturers early in the morning, about 10 or 10:30 in the morning, and I assumed that I was excused from having to bring that.
Right.
But when we walked in, he took one look at me and started, whoa, what's wrong here? I had to go back. I had to leave my manufacturer there and go to a grocery store and bring back a 12-pack for us to commence the sales meeting at 10:30 in the morning.
Well, I remember moving from Texas to Louisiana.
You can't drink all day if you don't start early.
Well, that's what I said. I go, it's 10:30. He says, this is Southern Louisiana. We drink all day.
I remember when in my 20s, I moved from Texas to Louisiana, and I remember driving across the state line, stopping at the first convenience store for gas, walking in and thinking, something's different. And it was the rows of hard alcohol behind the convenience store
at the convenience store.
shelf. It's like
Right next to the baby formula.
Yeah. Oh, you can buy. I've always said every business in Louisiana is really a liquor store and something. You can buy vodka at KB Toys in Louisiana. I'm convinced of that. So it's just the way it works.
When I was in New Braunfels last, did I show you the picture of the liquor store? And there's a sign, coming soon, so-and-so's firearms. I have this picture. And it's
great.
Literally the next door.
You can't make that up.
It's beautiful.
You can't make that up. So we'll be trying Parish's
shopping.
DriveThru Tiger Blood today, and then from Saloon Door Brewing in Webster, Texas, we'll be sampling their Banana Bandit. It is a Bananas Foster Imperial Cream Ale. So that should be interesting. A very decorative can.
That sounds like that might go well with Girl Scout Thin Mints.
I think that has a definite pairing in its future. So. And Ian's brought along, and this is just an absolutely beautiful presentation. And I see, Ian, that you have not done your prep work.
There's no safety check on that bottle.
Yeah, there's still plastic around the edge.
We're flying by the seat of our pants.
We could definitely cut our fingers on that, and then the neck has not been cleared for against accidental spillage.
Yeah.
So, but it is a beautiful presentation.
What we're saying is because every time he brings a bottle in, usually he's already cleared the plastic off the top, and usually a bit out of the neck. And it's just for safety reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
It's an OSHA requirement.
You don't want to have
I think,
a pressure
in some states.
explosion of any
That's
kind.
exactly right. But this is Templeton Rye, and it says it right here, the good stuff.
It does say the good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. You've had Templeton Rye before, though.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, okay, so we'll get to that and be very excited to get to that as the program continues. We're going to talk a little bit about cigar pricing. We'll talk a little bit more about the Cigar Aficionado list, which we covered last week. You guys have got My Father's Cigar on that list, so we'll ask you a little bit about that and what your take is on the importance of and accuracy of the list. So that I think will be an interesting conversation. And of course, we will be getting to our program's most popular feature, which is, go ahead. You can just give me the little.
Got to get the teaser.
Yep. Which is a segment called Drinking News. And in Drinking News, of course, we bring you a story that may or may not be about drinking, but is always one that you'll enjoy the most if you've been drinking. And by the time we get to that a little later in the show, we certainly will have been doing that. So today's teaser headline for Drinking News: Bacon. Is there nothing it can't do? So we'll look forward to that. Drinking News all coming up. Cigar prices look to be going up this year. We'll talk about that a little bit. Continued growth in the cigar industry. And 5 craft beer trends to watch for in 2022. If we have time
that
to get
should
to
be
all
interesting.
That. So I'm looking forward to this. And Jason, it was really great to have you on the show. I'm a fan of both of the lines of cigars that I see represented here. This is the Fonseca by My Father, right?
Yes, sir.
How did this bad boy come about? As Fonseca's one of the oldest brands.
A very storied brand in the American market. Absolutely.
And how long has My Father been producing cigars under the My Father name?
My Father Cigars under the My Father name started in the late 2000s when they opened their operations in Nicaragua. Before that, they were known as El Rey de los Habanos and made their cigars in a small factory in Little Havana, Miami. They started there in 2003.
Okay.
Of course, before that, Paping and Jaime worked in the Cuban market, producing their cigars. Paping starting as a 13-year-old roller in a rural field and working his way up over 40 years to the top echelons of the industry in Cuba, blending cigars, overseeing production, quality control, training, all of those sorts of things. Before he came to the United States via Nicaragua, an introduction to the Nicaraguan tobacco, I think opened a world of possibilities to him. He will tell you himself that before he was convinced that the best tobacco in the world was only Cuban, only Cuban. But he has certainly come around he came around during that exposure to the quality of the Nicaraguan tobacco being produced. This being nearly, I guess 20 years ago, and realized that what he can do in the United States is make Cuban cigars with Nicaraguan tobacco. If that makes sense. Every single thing about making his cigars in Miami at the time was the Cuban way of doing it. The only difference was that he started with Nicaraguan grown tobacco versus Cuban grown tobacco.
Now, the thing that obviously impacts the flavor and the quality of the tobacco the most is the soil, and the growing conditions. So what is it, in layman's terms, why do you think Nicaragua has emerged as being, out of all of the countries where tobacco is grown, kind of the new leader, especially in the United States where we still can't quite do the Cubans in a legal fashion?
I think, this is a multi-layered answer for you. On the one hand, I could go short and say that it's the closest tobacco to Cuba out of Honduras or Dominican or Nicaragua.
So you're talking about just geographically?
Environmentally, soil-wise, there's a lot of volcanic soils in Central America that have deeply enriched. You go deeper, and you can say that the industry has changed dramatically over the last 20 years. The cigars that we thought were strong, headbusters in 2002 are now considered maybe medium at best.
Right. For sure.
And Nicaragua didn't have hardly any presence. You remember that we had a lot of embargoes through the 80s and probably right up into the early 90s.
Dominican Republic was the clear leader at that time.
We got our cigars from all over the place. There was a much bigger variety of places that tobacco came, or our finished cigars came from. Canary Islands and Jamaica and other places like that, Mexico. And now it's narrowed down to 99% of our cigars come from Dominican, Nicaragua, and Honduras. But Nicaragua wasn't there.
Right.
I recall working in a cigar shop in college and having the first Hoya de Nicaragua arrive.
I remember when that hit the market, yes.
So I don't want to age myself. We'll just say the 90s, okay, early 90s, but very, very early 90s. But when people came into our store before the Hoya de Nicaragua and they asked for the strongest cigar we had in our stock, you know what we gave them?
What?
A punch.
A punch.
A punch. So early 90s, that would be the strongest cigar that we had in our humidor. Hoya de Nicaraguas came in, and after that you had the boom.
Right.
And of course, people coming in and demanding stronger and stronger cigars. In the early 2000s, when you had a culling of the herd from all the leftover producers in the 90s who didn't keep the quality up, they were gone. And an arms race began with the strongest cigars.
And that was when we started to see things like, the chisel from La Flor Dominicana.
El Lajero cigar. And a double Lajero. And a triple Lajero. Hey, and I'm going to need some water or something, guys.
The triple Lajero, by the way, is fantastic.
But this arms race of stronger and stronger and stronger cigars came about, and I think Nicaragua had a lot to play in that. And so it's all, it's a bit of a novelty to American smokers in the 90s. It really came into its own in the 2000s. Pepin was a vanguard there in bringing the awareness of Nicaraguan tobacco to the U.S. I think at least he gets a lot of credit for that. I think it's well-deserved credit. But it's a long-winded explanation to say that I think that Nicaragua is making the cigars and producing the flavors and strengths that the American market's looking for.
And its influence on the whole industry.
For sure, yeah.
Nothing to take away from the other countries making cigars.
No, in
fact,
fact,
there's a definite flavor profile when you go for Nicaraguan tobacco versus Honduran tobacco versus
Dominican,
Dominican tobacco. There's definitely characteristics that much like the Cuban tobacco has its own characteristic. All those things really.
Well, I will say
are definable
because I most regularly smoke primarily Nicaraguan blends, and I always enjoy, though, the change of pace of something Ecuadorian, like something from the place where we went with your brother when we went down to the Aladino farm.
To Honduras.
To Honduras. There's a quality, a sort of an earthy quality to the Honduran tobacco that I don't know if I ever really appreciated it until I became primarily a Nicaraguan cigar smoker. But going to it's such a wonderful change, and that's why it's so awesome. I think to be able to have the variety that we have now.
Yeah, it's pretty
I've had a few
amazing.
really great Dominican cigars this year too. I mean, there's just been I think a real resurgence of quality. You know, you mentioned the boom, and obviously there were a lot of bad cigars that got made during the boom.
Man,
Yes.
construction issues
Yeah.
so bad.
Once things
Painted wrappers.
Once things
You know,
solidified.
medium and short fill cigars being sold off as long fill cigars.
Can you tell me about the cigar that I just lit up? This Vegas Cubanas.
All right, that is one of my favorite cigars from my Father Cigars.
This is such a classic and classy label. I was instantly drawn to.
Well, I think that also describes the cigar itself. I think it's a quintessential cigar. I mentioned that Don Pepin, when he came to the United States, he didn't know the American market. It took him time to figure out what people were looking for, but he knew the Cuban market. He knew that Cuban cigars were popular. So using that Nicaraguan tobacco, he went through the processes to recreate Cuban cigars for the United States. That particular cigar was modeled on the traditional Cuban Cohiba, the most popular, best-selling cigar
Best-selling
from
cigar
Cuba.
from Cuba, yeah.
The blue label is
incredibly earthy and spicy, and with just a hint of chocolate in the background going on.
This is a good example. When that cigar came out around 04, I believe it was, we sold it as a medium full-bodied, medium full-strength cigar. Now, it's definitely in this market. I promote it as a medium mild cigar.
Yeah, I'd say it's medium.
And-
But I'm on the initial light though, and initial light's always a little bit bigger, but
Yeah.
so I'll be interested to see where it goes.
So we got started talking about the Fonseca by my father, but how did this come about? You guys teamed up with the Fonseca people? Did they come to you? How did it work?
The Casa family, who owned the Fonseca brand marks for the United States, and the Garcias are close family friends.
Close family friends. Okay.
They've had some collaborations together in the past, and the Garcias have had a affinity and a fondness of this particular brand mark because both Jaime and Pepin worked in the Cuban Fonseca factory, so they sort of coveted this brand.
Right.
And I don't know what back room things went on, but they bought the brand mark from the Casa family in 2019. They took possession of all existing Fonseca cigars from the Casa family. Those have been put behind lock and key, and they came out with this cigar in 2020.
So
It's the only Fonseca in the market now.
but the Garcias now own the brand, the
They
full
do.
brand.
They own the
So
full
any
brand mark.
Fonsecas that come out in the future will be from them.
Yes.
That's interesting because I don't think I realized that. I thought it was more of a collaboration. So
No, this is a cigar made by the Garcias for, in their minds what they think a Fonseca should be.
it's really rich. It was the first thing that kind of strikes me about it. There's a whole lot going on here, even at about the quarter-inch burn length. There's just a whole lot of things going on, and I'm getting kind of a toastiness and some earth and leather. This is one that I can already tell I'm going to enjoy this all the way through because I think the flavors are going to and the notes are going to shift as it smokes really nicely.
I think you'll enjoy it too, and it's something new for the Garcias. That's the first cigar with a Garcia grown, shade grown Corojo.
Ah, okay.
Nice.
That makes sense.
They're in the shade grown now, and they started that a few years back with all the pandemic. We haven't been down in Nicaragua since January 2020, and that was the first time. We'd been in a couple or 3 years, and I saw the shaded farms, just the entire valley just covered with cheesecloth.
Cheesecloth stretched out on posts and stuff to shade the wrapper.
Looking at the fields and valleys where they grow the tobacco is awe-striking, and imagining the amount of work and effort goes through care to each plant. Absolutely awe-striking.
The amount of work that goes into getting the fields prepped from the Garcias. We have seen the fields. They've driven us by. This is my new farm I just bought. And you look out upon the field and you see rocks sticking out of the soil and everywhere. And you come back a year later and the
it's
soil,
been tilled, yeah.
I'm not exaggerating this. The soil would be at the ceiling level here when we saw it the first time. And after they removed all those rocks and gotten them removed, and they use everything. They recycle, they reuse. They're very environmental that way. The rocks have been made into walls. They made it into retaining structures. They've been made into floors for the nurseries, and benches and everything else under the sun. But the level of the ground will have come down maybe 10 feet.
That's crazy.
And now they've got the soil properly ready to cultivate tobacco in.
You know, one of the things that we have talked about,
the manual labor that goes into it.
one of the things that we've talked about repeatedly since coming back from Honduras and visiting the Aladino farm and factory is that once you see the amount of work that goes into from preparing the fields to planting to growing to harvesting to curing to blending to it's amazing that you can buy a cigar for under $20.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
The amount
Absolutely
of hands
crazy.
that touch it, it's unbelievable. Actually.
Well, that's what Elysion did the 300 manos, the 300 hands, and that was kind of a nod to
How
they
many
say
hands touched
how
that
many hands have
before-
touched that cigar
before
to
it
make
gets
it
to you.
to make it available to you. you know?
It's really impressive, and it really, for me, it really kind of like it stopped me from thinking, why are cigars so expensive? You know,
Right,
You know,
right.
just because I think back to the days when you could, you know, when you really could. I mean, I have an old antique sign hanging in my house that says, 5-cent cigars. I mean, those were the days, right?
Yeah.
But
You wish.
I'd be happy to find a good $5 cigar
Right,
these
yeah.
days. But it's such an involved process. And the other thing that I loved was you mentioned about how they are so great with the ecological side of things. There's just a love, at least this is what we experience. They just have a love for the land, for the way that the soil and growing works. And it's not being green because being green is cool. It's being green because that's the way it's always supposed to be. You know what I mean? And it's really that's we call that an Ian ash.
Yeah,
when
it
it breaks
does-
from your
does that
cigar,
to me all the
it heads
time.
directly for
That
your
was
clothes.
way too long.
I'm surprised it didn't hit me.
I want to show you. I'm sorry, I was looking for this picture. I want to show you this picture. This is how you can see where the wall is above. That would be where this field started. Those rocks that's Jose, our sales manager. He's standing next to it. That tree is at the level that the ground used to be.
I want to have Adam show this to the camera so we can.
This is
share
how
this
this is
picture.
how
That's
far
amazing.
they dug into the ground, removing rocks.
Removing
that
rocks
other growers would look at that field and say, "No, not going to mess with it."
Yeah, I'm not
Garcia
gonna-
saw the potential.
Wow.
I believe that's the Nominee farm, and that's where all the tobacco in the Flor de las Antillas comes from. It's an actual true blue Puros. 100% of the tobacco
Wow.
comes from one single farm, and that's Nominee farm that you're looking at in that picture. So they went down, and Jose's I think he's about 6 feet tall. So,
That's great.
and they said that tree.
How did they? One of the things
That's crazy.
about my father is that when you talk to anyone in a cigar lounge in a cigar store, there's almost a universal acceptance of that this is such a quality line, that this is one of the highest quality lines of cigars. Obviously, the product is there and it backs it
And
up.
it's
But how did that reputation grow? I mean, you mentioned that they didn't really know anything about the American market when they started, and fast forward not that many years, and they're a brand that's mentioned with Padron,
greatest,
with Fuente, with the brands that really are accepted as being quality. How did they amplify? Obviously, like I said, the tobacco is there, the blending is right, but how do you go from that to achieving the kind of respect that they've got?
You can't do it any other way than doing the right job over and over for years and years. You only get that kind of a reputation when you've proven yourself in and out, up and down, year after year. And quality is going to always be the number one standard for them. If they won't rush a cigar, if they will. Well, okay, let me put it this way. They have from the very beginning said that our cigars may not be the best cigars, but there's no one better. That's a Pepin quote.
Nice.
And we're going to make our cigars the traditional way cigars need to be made, the way that Pepin and Jaime grew up making cigars in Cuba. They have every attention to detail, an extra fermentation level that's usually not conducted in the American market that they brought from Cuba. The second binder, every single My Father cigar has 2 binders on it. It's the only factory in the American market that does that on every single cigar.
And so from a flavor standpoint, what does that help accomplish?
Well, on the flavor, you get a binder leaf is an important I think it's the unsung hero of cigars. You have a wrapper leaf.
It's
that's
the
beautiful.
bass player.
Yeah, it's the bass player.
Sure, maybe it's a bass player.
It's there wearing tight leather pants, just quietly hanging out.
It's the backbone of a cigar. It is holding all that filler together, right? So in most cigars, you have one binder holding all the tobacco together.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be a thick, pliable leaf to do the job it's being tasked to do. Then a thicker leaf is harder leaf to ferment to the center. So a thicker leaf tends to retain a lot of its original flavors, the extra tar and ammonias and oils and nicotine in it. So it's already a pretty powerful leaf. That's one of the reasons I think it plays a big part in the blending of cigars that a lot of end consumers don't appreciate. When you have two of those, not only are you getting two, and the two binders will always be different. Corojo, Criollo, maybe broadleaf, Corojo, two different leaves. They'll never be the same. So you're getting an extra added level of complexity.
Yeah.
You're getting a thicker leaf that's going to convey a lot more strength and flavor. And the structural integrity of the cigar is enhanced, not just double, but probably quadrupled, because as they put the leaves, binder leaves on, they cross the veins. So there's probably a word in the engineering world for that. But if you have a bridge and you put two slats parallel to each other on it, you've just doubled the strength of the bridge. But if you cross those plats this way, it somehow increases the strength of the bridge, 3, 4, 5 times more. So you get that. So you have very few construction problems with the My Father cigar.
And look at
so
this
you have to take it
like
both ways.
Champ.
One, yes, an extra leaf that no one expected and no one's paying extra for, because the Garcias just started doing that. I honestly don't know why, other than that's the way Cuba did it. They didn't bother to ask anyone in the American market if that's normal.
And the cigars we're talking about are all in a great price range too. They're not super expensive cigars.
And that was one of the things that I was going to mention, is that My Father, I feel like, given the reputation and the strength of how people feel about the cigars in the market, I think it's just cool that you guys actually have cigars under $12 and $15. Like, you've got very reasonable prices in the line, and you do have some that are higher end on My Father, but it's not like we talked about this last week. Padron, if you buy their expensive cigars, they're pretty exceptional. If you buy their less expensive cigars, they're kind of they're all right. They're not bad, but there's a big drop off in quality. And I think I've smoked just about everything in the My Father line, and to be really honest with you, I don't see much of a drop off of quality at all when you go with one of the lesser expensive cigars. And to me, that's just about integrity. It's like, you could be charging more for this cigar but you're not.
From the first My Father that I smoked, I've been an absolute fan, and since then, anything that I see Pepin Garcia or Jaime Garcia on, I am immediately drawn to. Like that just because of the quality of everything in their line.
The quality is from across the board, and they put their passion in every single cigar, whether it be on all of our regular production products range in price from about $3 with the Tobacco Bias Series SF up to the most expensive cigar. I think tops a little over $13, which would be like the Judge Grand Robusto or maybe the Le Bijou Churchill. That's it. I mean, the most expensive cigar, just a little over $13 for a consumer, without state taxes, of course. So it's the same standards, same dedication to quality in every single cigar. I think if you smoke the Tobacco Bias, which is the less expensive cigar, which we refer to as a bundle in a box, you're not smoking a $3 cigar. You're smoking a cigar that's worth much, much more. And the Garcias just don't poke in their price increases as they do. We had a price increase in 2007. Do you know how long it took before they had another across-the-board price increase on the line? 2020. They went 13 years without a price increase across the board. Most cigars stay exactly the same price as they were in 2007, or when they came out, with a couple tweaks on a couple brands. I think 2, maybe 3 brands got a little tweak of 15 or 20 cents along the way. But the rest of the cigars stayed the same. And the next across-the-board price increase we had was 2020, and they only went up for the consumer 30 cents per stick when they did that.
That's crazy.
Why? Because they could have. We could have we could have charged so much more for the Flor de las Antillas and the Jaime Garcias over that span of time. People still would have bought it. It was #1. Flor de las Antillas became #1 the year it came out. You easily could have slapped another 50 cents on that, and we would have sold every single stick.
Absolutely.
But they didn't, because I think that they're genuine people who are passing on the cost of their cigars. They're making enough money to support themselves, their employees, and they want people to be able to afford to smoke their cigars.
We're going to talk a little bit about cigar prices when we come back in the next segment, because all of the noises we're beginning to hear are about cigars becoming more expensive this year. Of course, everything's becoming more expensive.
Hey, do you remember the last time they had a price drop?
No, I don't remember that.
Does it actually exist? I was being facetious.
No, we actually dropped the price. It was around might have been 2000. No, it wasn't 2000. Around 2010, we had adjustment when the Garcias moved some of the production out of Miami down to Nicaragua, and the labor costs, of course, went down. They actually did lower the prices on a couple of those
I didn't
cigars.
know that.
That's actually really cool. That's actually really
That's
cool.
a little refreshing to hear.
But there are increases coming for a lot of lines. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next segment. Plus, it's time to start tasting, and I got a dot matrix black lager from Equal Parts. Well, that was hard to say. A dot matrix black lager from Equal Parts that is kind of burning a hole in my beverage.
How many
bag
kids
over
out there
here.
even know what dot matrix means?
Well,
Right.
we'll
What
talk
is that
about
referring to? They don't even know. They're like,
It's like
oh,
one of
that's
those
that's some
videos.
Yoki-Yo. What are those Japanese things? Probably,
Dot matrix. Yeah, is it a character in the new Matrix movie?
Right.
We'll find out.
Character named Dot.
We'll find out coming up in Smokin' and Toastin'. It's show number 267. Our guest is Jason Pohler with my father and Aguilera, and we'll be right back. Welcome back at Smokin' and Toastin', show number 267. We're all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars.
All good things.
And maybe we should also be about coffee, because Jason was just talking to us in the break and explaining that you actually weren't a coffee drinker at all until you got into cigars.
no, I didn't care for the taste of coffee.
Right.
I love the smell of coffee, but I didn't like the taste of it until I read an article early when I had been in the business only for a short time. And they said, and the question was, what's the most popular drink to have with a cigar? And the answer was coffee,
Right.
which blew my mind. I expected whiskey or so many other
Right,
things,
right.
but not coffee. So I decided, well, let's see what everyone else knows that I don't know. And I started drinking coffee, and it is the best way to start a day.
It goes great.
Well,
Yeah.
we
It's
sure had some good
fantastic
coffee
with a
when we
cigar.
were down in Honduras.
We did.
Staying with the Aladino
You know,
family.
when I went to Ybor City, we got there 10 in the morning, something like that. We got dropped off in Ybor City at 10 in the morning. And me and my wife just started wandering around. That's what everyone does. Sits outside the cigar shop with a coffee. Because every cigar shop is coffee.
Cuban coffee.
Is coffee and cigars. You know, like everyone has that. And everyone sits outside with a newspaper and a coffee and a cigar, sits out and chats with coffee and cigars. And I was aware of it already, but just seeing that culture, like that is a very steeped in the culture kind of thing.
Definitely. You know what's hard to find in Miami?
What's that?
Regular coffee.
It's also hard to find in
know,
in
it's-
Louisiana.
Yankee coffee. Yankee coffee is hard to find. Here you go to every truck stop, every gas station, they have a coffee station.
Right.
And I was driving around visiting my companies, and every morning I wanted to go in and get a cup of coffee. I knew I was going to have Cuban coffee when I got to the store or to the offices, but I wanted a regular coffee. No, I must have stopped in 5 different gas stations, and all they had was Cuban coffee. I was like, I give this up.
And Louisiana, it's all got chicory.
It's all chicory coffee, yeah. Which also goes well with certain cigars. Like it limits it a little bit, but not that much. I've had cigars that have had a little bit of chicory kind of spice to it as well that I've detected. But yeah, coffee is great. And I'm not a coffee snob. It has to be at least good coffee, but I have a Keurig machine. You know, that's as snobby as I get.
Yeah.
I have one too. It's so simple.
It's
You gotta
so
love it.
easy, yeah.
Nice and easy. All right, it's dot matrix time, gentlemen. I'm going to
Matrix.
just kind of show this to the camera.
Look at that beautiful
so you
color.
guys can see this. That's Equal Parts. Brewing, which is one of the newer breweries in Houston, Texas.
Well, and equal parts, we've mentioned this before, equal parts came out of Sigma Brewing.
Right.
Oh, geez.
And we need to follow up with them. We said this, I think, last time, too. We need to follow up with them because we had Sigma scheduled on the show.
We have actually been working on that.
And then they changed their name. They're like, hold on, we gotta wait a little bit. And then they changed their name on us.
Yeah, so...
what kind of coffee, or what kind of beer?
This is a black lager.
Black lager.
So it would be
good.
comparable to like a Shiner Black, I guess, would be
I love
the
Shiner
closest
Black.
thing that probably style-wise I can
like
think
this.
of. But it's usually very roasty.
It's definitely got coffee notes in it.
Yeah, it usually has some coffee notes, but not the way you would expect from
Not
like an
like a
Imperial
coffee
Stout.
beer, no.
Or, right, exactly.
Oh,
So
that's tasty.
That is really good.
Oh.
Crispy, too.
equal parts.
You know,
It's
funny-
almost as if you took like a porter and a lager and kind of took the best parts of both of those
Of each
things.
one? Yeah. There's really not a lot of information on the can. It's a beautiful sort of geometric design. And we talked about the fact that it's called dot matrix is interesting for those of you who are young enough to to not know what that means. That's what the old printers were.
Oh, yeah.
When you first
Remember you had to feed them in with the little
With the
spike
little
wheel on each
spike
end?
wheel, yeah.
right?
heaven forbid they come off of those wheels.
Oh my God, you're screwed. You
The
got an
paper
hour ahead of
jam.
you. A paper jam when one of those was just
Paper
like
jam.
yeah. But the sides would have
Perforated,
tearaway strips with grooves, and you would put those grooves in the wheel, and it would turn, and the printer would literally go across the page. Zzz, zzz, and it would put little dots on the paper that would wind up resembling.
And if you got a good one, you could get like 6 pages a minute.
Oh yeah, it'd be just.
You had a good one. Do you remember how heavy those things were?
Yeah. Oh my God!
The first time I ever threw out my back was when I was putting one of those in the back, in the trunk of my car. That was a heavy printer.
Yeah, and then of course we got laser printers and then inkjets, and now I haven't kept up.
And they still don't make one that works consistently.
Well, I tell you what they do though, they practically give away the printers.
Yeah.
You can go buy a
It costs
huge full function
It
printer.
literally
for
costs
under
about
$100.
$20 to $30 more to just buy a brand new printer than just to buy a full ink.
A full complement of ink. Yeah, I know, it's true.
It's true,
They'll,
very true.
they'll give
Crazy.
you ink with the printer when you buy it, but they're those
The
really
short fills, yeah.
short-
So it says the printer costs $30.
Yeah. So it's
That's a racket.
it really is. And the best part now is they've come up with ways to refill those cartridges, and they can sell you refurbished or refilled. But a lot of the printer
company,
manufacturers have basically been able to program their printers to recognize if it's not a brand new HP cartridge, and it won't accept it. It'll reject it.
Yeah.
So it's
a
crazy.
frustrating thing.
But everything, I guess, goes up. Cigars are going up. At least a lot of them are this year. In fact, Cigar Aficionado just put out a news alert that says the inflation costs mean costs are rising everywhere, and now many cigar makers are responding with price hikes. And it's always interesting to see who raises their prices and who doesn't. But the fact is, everybody's cost of doing business
is going up, right? So it's not
Whether
like they're
shipping.
It's not like
costs,
they're doing a
the
money
boxes,
grab. I think
right. The boxes you put them in. I don't know.
the 1/3 of the box warning label that costs extra. The
The containers, guys, that's a big part of it. All these boxes of cigars we enjoy are shipped in containers. There's a shortage of containers, and Jaime mentioned that the containers went up from, I don't know what point in time he was talking about, $8,000 a container to $23,000 per container. Now that's if you can get a container. The second part is the trucking. We've had things stuck in the Miami port for lack of truckers. Truckers. And of course, what happens when you have fewer truckers than you need? The truckers that are still working can charge more.
Yeah.
So everything, the shipping part has gone up dramatically.
And you also talked about things sitting in the port waiting for truckers. That's dead time. You make zero money on any of that product.
Our
while
back
it's
orders
sitting
do
there.
not get moved.
Exactly. And people, if your stuff's out of stock at the store, maybe they don't just wait. Maybe they buy somebody else's. So it's a vicious cycle. Fuente increased their prices starting on the 1st of the year. General Cigar Company, Scandinavian Tobacco Group, that owns General Cigar Company, CAO, Cohiba Punch, and Hoya de Monterey, the non-Cuban blends of that, have all gone up. Ashton Distributors, which is Ashton, La Aroma de Cuba, and San Cristobal. They've averaged about a 6% increase on their lines. J.C. Newman out of Florida has upped the cost of their premium lines by 3%. They say high labor and tobacco costs. That went into effect on January 12th. If you're a fan of Oliva or Rocky Patel cigars, you got a little more time, but not much, because February 1st will be price increases for Oliva and Rocky Patel. Others are going up. Alec Bradley, Tatuaje. What about you guys? Should we expect to see things increase a little bit?
We had a modest price increase go in effect on January 1st for My Father Cigars. Aganorsa Leaf has a price increase going in effect on February 1st. And I'd like to, price increases are not new to this industry.
Sure.
Some companies do it every year. Other companies like the Garcias only do it when it's necessary to do it.
Right.
And right now it's necessary. As the growth we've had in this industry in the last 2 years has precipitated them to do massive expansions in Nicaragua. So in the last 8 months or so, they have built an entirely new 2-story building on their campus to house extra rollers. They've expanded a bus fleet that they have that pull in workers from up to 100 miles outside of Esteli. There are no workers in Esteli to be found. They've also expanded their box factory to triple its capacity, and so all of this costs money.
Sure, of course.
I think
and that
across
has to
the
come
board,
from somewhere,
and
right?
not just My Father. I think everyone is trying to do expansions, right? Keep up with this demand, so that we can get rid of the back orders, get people the products they want on time. So these price increases are partially also there to pay for these expansions.
And one of the things that we have been hearing now for quite some time is that last year was one of the best years ever on record for cigar shipments to the United States. The demand has just been increasing really steadily for
I think with
years.
a lot of people working at home and a lot of people having some downtime at home due to COVID, people have time to pick up and have a hobby and enjoy a cigar. And I know a lot of times, I mean, I'm a musician, so I have weird work hours, but when I'm practicing guitar, I'll sit out, if it's a nice day, I'll sit outside and have a cigar and practice my music and work on things that I need to know, for each week when I'm playing those kind of things. And it's played hell on my humidor.
You had a lot of customers who were that customer who came in on his way home from work to smoke a cigar in a cigar shop and then go home. So he had one cigar a day for 5 cigars in a week. Now he's at home Zoom calling, doing his conferences and his meetings and all of his work at home, and he's smoking 3 or 4 cigars per day.
Yeah.
So of course that was a boon to the business for sure. And a lot of new smokers came in because it's a very
now they have the opportunity.
It's a very easy, relatively low cost, not bad for your health kind of hobby that you can do. If you're a man or a woman and you want to pick up a hobby that's relatively easy
and not
this
super
is it.
expensive. Yeah.
So we've had an influx of a lot of new smokers over the last 2 years as well.
I'll just mention, if you're on a Zoom call with me and you see my little, static picture instead of video, that's because I'm smoking. Just count on it. And I just don't want to hear it,
Having a cigar.
Yeah. So you must not be taking this meeting very seriously. No, I'm very serious. I'm just enjoying, I'm just keeping my stress level down so that we can have a productive meeting.
I think my fiance pointed out to me, I believe I'm smoking more cigars too. During the shutdown, staying at home, I spent a lot of time out on working the phones, talking to people, smoking cigars through the day. And she said, "Are you smoking more cigars than you did before?" I said, "I hadn't thought about it." I think I am. On a weekly basis, I think I'm smoking a lot more cigars than I used to.
Well,
I definitely am. I think pre-COVID, I would smoke probably averaging less than a cigar a day. I would maybe have 2 cigars on a day when I had nothing else to do, but then there'd be days where I just didn't have cigars. But almost across the board, I have about a cigar a day at least now.
Yeah, it's just it's something that again, if you're working from home, if you've got a place you can smoke at your home, a back patio or a balcony or something, it's a pretty good way to take a little bit of the stress off as the day goes by. And I think what happened is that when we first went into lockdown, back when everybody stayed home, now it's like some states are more than others, but back when everybody stayed home, I think people, I certainly did this, dug into their humidor, and all of a sudden, several weeks in, you're looking at your humidor and you're going, oh, I don't have much left. So when you went to the cigar store the next time, you weren't just buying a handful. You were
You
getting
had
a
to
box
stock
or
up,
maybe
right.
two to stock that humidor
Well,
up.
the-
And all of a sudden, man, stores started getting.
So a
low
lot of
in stock.
retailers saying
Yeah.
people have gone from buying sticks to buying boxes.
Yeah,
We're selling
absolutely.
a lot more boxes.
Well, I mean, my humidor went like this. I've got 4 drawers in my humidor, and each one holds like 30 cigars ish. And I went from having, my whole lawnmower selection, the less
That's what I call
expensive,
them, too.
right, the lawnmowers,
Lawnmowers or dog walkers?
all the way up to my special occasion drawer on top, and I mowed through all my lawnmowers.
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, now I'm going into all the premium priced ones, and I went through all those, and then there was a few weeks during COVID where every cigar I smoked was $20 or more. I was like,
Because that's what you had left.
that's all I had left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you for your business.
Yeah, right.
We love to hear that.
Talk a little bit about for your companies. What is your view of online cigar sales? Obviously, we hear a lot about supporting, your brick and
Support
mortar
local,
stores,
yeah.
and a shop like these guys here at
Casa,
Cigars
yeah.
and Casa De Montecristo. We love making sure we're spending money with them because we want them to continue to be here and do what they're doing. But how does a company like my father or Aguilera, how do they feel about online sales? Do you look at it as a positive, or is it a necessary evil, or
It's a part of the world now.
Yeah.
In the way you have transportation, in delivery so quickly, the convenience of online shopping has improved so much that it's hard to deny the appeal of it.
Agreed.
But we are very much dedicated to the brick and mortar stores, and our companies have price agreements that must be respected. So whether you buy our cigars online or you buy our cigars in a brick and mortar store, you're going to be paying the same price.
Right, so that it doesn't wind up being a disadvantage for the brick and mortar guys.
We were made by brick and mortar companies. We were supported by brick and mortar companies.
Is that MAP pricing? Do they call it that in that industry?
I think that's it.
Yeah,
I think
minimum
that's it.
advertised price.
Minimum, yeah. This is our standard price, and you must honor this price if you want to have a contract with us or an account with us. And if you don't, if we catch people online, and there are renegades online that we cannot track down. It happens. We get the calls from the brick and mortar companies that say, "Hey, so and so is discounting this," and my father or Aguilera, Agnorsa will try their best to find out who is supplying that website. Very often, it's done in such a manner that there's no way to find out.
That's tough. That's a little underhanded and tough.
It is. It's sneaky, but it's out there, and we regret that happens. We do our best to police it. But there is no overall policeman for the internet.
There's not a way.
Some things are just beyond our control.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a break here in just a moment, but I wanted to come back around on this dot matrix. Ian, what was your take on this?
It's fantastic.
On this black
It's
lager?
delicious. It's crispy and it's full-bodied.
How do you feel about it in comparison to other, like a Shiner Black, for example?
So here's a weird one. I was never a big fan of the Shiner Black.
Really? Because I really like that
There's something in that flavor profile. There's just some kind of thing in that particular black lager that I didn't really jive with.
So you like this better?
I like this better. But I love Shiner beers in general,
Well, I like this a lot, but it is very different to my palate from a Shiner Black, which is more of a traditional black lager. This is much more of a coffee infused or coffee, has much more a strong coffee note to it. It is almost as coffee-ish as drinking a very coffee noted Imperial
Yeah,
stout
some
or a
of
porter.
those, yeah.
So I think you said it was kind of like they took the best elements of a porter,
and
black lager
and a lager and put them together and really.
Yeah.
And it's also we talked about things that are very like exactly what they're supposed to be. It's very beer flavored beer.
Yeah, I like beer that tastes like beer.
There's no mistaking what you're drinking. It's not trying to be something different or outlandish, but it is quite good at what it is, and it goes, by the way, absolutely fantastic with my cigar.
Well, I don't know how the DriveThru Tiger Blood is going to go with the cigar, but that's the next one we're going to try.
I assume that's going to have that's a sour.
It's a Berliner style, so
right?
it's going to
Berliner
have a
style.
little
It's going to have some
to it,
sour,
but it's also going to be very fruity, I think, based on.
So sour ales with or Berliner style or that whole style of beer going with cigars can be kind of touch and go.
Can be a little iffy, yes.
Sometimes they're okay. Sometimes they really clash.
It has tiger blood. It says
It has
watermelon,
tiger blood in it?
watermelon, strawberry, and coconut Berliner style ale. Yeah, I was looking for some sort of Charlie Sheen endorsement on it somewhere, but I didn't. I didn't see that.
Title, did the list of ingredients include tiger blood?
Well, it says it's DriveThru Tiger Blood is the way it is.
I would love
That's the
real
actual
tiger blood.
name of it. I'm going to guess it doesn't actually include any real
I'm
tiger blood,
disappointed.
but we may have to find out, and so we'll do that next. It's Smokin' and Toastin', show number 267. Jason Pohler is our guest. We'll be right back. Welcome back, my friends. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. This program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars.
Those guys
It's
are
show
crazy.
number 267. My co-host is Ian Barry. My name is Cruz. Adam is our producer on the Wheels of Steel, and I am thrilled to welcome Jason Pohler to the show. Jason, your family, a lot of the members of your family seem to be in the cigar business.
This is your second time on the show.
It is.
Yeah.
So the last time we were at Stogie's, and that was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. That was. There's always a good time.
Yeah.
But you're a cigar business family. Was that? How did that just kind of happen organically, or?
My father came into the business in the early 80s.
Right.
And it
doing
was a
what
very
you do, or
doing what we do. He was
Yeah.
a broker and selling pipes, cigars, all accoutrements, plus umbrellas, Mapscos. Do you remember what Mapscos are? Okay, well they were the days before you had they were
Google Maps and
the Google
all
Maps
that.
and things. These were the spiral maps that would
I
go
do
into
remember
detail
those.
for your local county.
There's
and
another name for those. There's there were key maps or
maybe
something like
maybe.
that. Yeah,
Well, he
where it would
suffered-
have sections of a place on different pages.
Yeah, the industry was very, very different back
Yeah,
then.
oh, yeah.
And he told me some years ago that he was actually looking to get out of the industry and into something else in the early 90s. That's when the boom started happening
Right.
and things started turning around and changed the industry dramatically. And as the boom was happening, he had more business than he can deal with, so he brought my brother Tom into
And the
the
Pohler
business to
dynasty
work with
was
him in the
born.
broker as a broker. Then later my brother Ryan came in, and finally I came in. And the reason I came in, or the why they were able to afford to bring me in, was my father was the last independent rep for Fuente. And around 2001, they gave him an ultimatum of either coming in-house, working exclusively for him, or losing the line. So he decided it better for him at his age to stay with the Fuente. So his other lines roll over to my brothers, and they had more than they can handle. They brought me in at that point. So there's three.
Are you the youngest of the three?
No, I'm the second oldest.
Okay.
Tom's the oldest. I'm the second oldest, and we're a family of 7 kids. So actually, there's 4 people who aren't in the business at all.
Yeah.
My sister Dee Dee did work with us for many years as kind of an office personnel person who was taking care of inbound calls, running down issues, and things of that nature. Now smartphones kind of made her job, bless her heart, kind of obsolete, which is great. Now she and her husband have a wonderful, successful business in truck repairs, and they're doing quite well. But she was in the business for a little bit, but I still have 3 other siblings who have never been in the business.
So I'm also from a family of 7. I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers. So none of them are in any of the industries that I'm in.
Yeah. 5 brothers, 2
You're the black
sisters of
sheep.
mine.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So I want to ask you about this cigar because I just opened the cellophane on this. Love the look of it.
It has an incredibly cool label.
I'm a big Day of the Dead fan. I love the decorative skulls. But this is the
Now that's a sweet tip cigar.
yeah, it's a Rough Rider.
Maduro.
And it's a Maduro, but I could tell immediately when I put it in my mouth that it's got a little bit of sweetness to the wrapper. So talk to me about this cigar.
Okay,
what
so
I
this
should
is from
expect.
Aguilera, and we sell a lot of these Rough Riders. They are a sweet tip cigar. Other than that, they are 100% regular premium cigar. Hand rolled, long fill.
What's the
premium tobacco.
process to do a sweet tip on a cigar like that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I was about to say, the only difference you'll get is when we put the cap on, the glue. Every cigar has a glue, a vegetable paste
Right.
that they put on. We mix a little. They mix a little red wine and sugarcane into the glue. That is it.
So it's only the tip. If I
only
were to
the tip. You
lick
can
the
act-
cigar down here, which I don't do, but if I were to do that, I'm not going to get the same little hint of sweetness that I get from the cap.
A neat thing that you can do with the cigar is control the amount of sweetness you have by how much of the cap you cut off.
Right. Now, I used to punch, so I didn't take away much at all.
No, so you're getting maximum sweet. You could...
if I were to take my cigar scissors and slice that off...
if it was a little too sweet for you, cut a little bit more off until you get the appropriate amount of sweetness in it. But it's a fine cigar. I like to think of these, they're very popular with a lot of people. It's not a lady cigar. It's not just a newbie cigar. Lots of men smoke the cigar. It's particularly popular, I've seen myself, with bikers. Watching bikers come in, grab a handful, drop them in their saddlebag, pop one in their mouth, and ride off. And someone finally told me why they like them so much. And I said, why? They like them because, well, they're biking. They're not smoking it, but they're chewing on it. They like the sweetness on it. And when they get to their destination, they can immediately pull out the lighter and light the sucker up.
Nice.
So it's for everybody's cigar, but I think it serves a particular purpose in cigar stores as a bridge cigar between the infused and flavored cigars and premium cigars. Somebody needs a soft landing. This is a great place. Other than that little bit in the glue, there is nothing unusual about the cigar.
So I'm going to test out what you were talking about because I used a punch in the beginning and I just clipped off the end. There's quite a bit of sweetness. I liked it. I enjoyed it. But I think now that I've experienced that, I want to go a little more like straightforward. So now you're right. Very, very big difference in how much sweetness is going to be on the draw.
This cigar that I've been smoking this whole time is not only a very slow smoking cigar, but it is, I was saying during the break, it is unapologetically cigar. Like, it is exactly
I love that though.
And earthy.
The Vegas Cubanas you're talking about.
Yes, if you like an earthy cigar and a little bit of spice on the back, this is 100% up your alley. This also picks up a little bit of spice and strength towards the end of it, I noticed.
Yeah. Ian, one of our real friends of the show here, and you've got a buddy who works there, is Eureka Heights Brewery here in the Houston area.
Joel,
Joel, who's done the show with you when I was when I was gone, and you guys just, I'm not saying go back and watch the show, but I was a little afraid for my job when you guys were on the show together.
We had fun.
It was a fun show. Eureka Heights does something that I just love. And I think everybody's going to love this.
Is it the beer and yoga?
Well, okay.
Because they do that too.
Yeah, I know they do. That's where something that I think Adam, our producer, would be into. This is not a yoga bod. But I will say, one of the things I think everybody can agree on that they do is they are huge, huge fans of the person they consider to be their brewery patron saint, and that is the late Betty White.
Yes, they have a shrine at the brewery.
They have a whole shrine at Eureka Heights, and their 100th birthday party for her is still on. She passed away just a few days shy of her 100th birthday, and within an hour of the news of her passing, fans started trickling into Eureka Heights to put flowers and candles and drawings and other mementos, add them to the Betty White shrine.
Which was it has been there for a long time. This is not a new development. That's been
several weeks later, the shrine is still growing. Yeah. So every time you go to Eureka Heights to the brew pub, you'll see that their Betty White shrine is
I go up there most Saturday mornings because I ride with the Eureka Heights MS 150 team. And so I've seen the shrine growing recently. It's been quite entertaining.
The whole Betty White thing for Eureka Heights, the way that it started was when they opened the brewery in 2016. The owners and founding team were all big fans of Golden Girls and of Betty, and so when they created the social media accounts for Eureka Heights, the platform requires you to follow at least one person. You may remember back in the MySpace days, it was always Tom from MySpace. Everybody got to follow Tom. Well, this is Facebook and Twitter and the others. You have to follow one person just for the account to be created. So they followed Betty White, and that's how it started. Their one follower to this day. That's the one person they follow to this day on the social media accounts for Eureka Heights. But the affiliation goes beyond that. They say, we try as a company to embody the morals and beliefs and general mantra of Betty White. And we have a very childlike look at life, just like she did. We try to take everything with a grain of salt and not take life too seriously. I will share with you my favorite, because there's been a lot of stuff in the news and stuff about Betty White since
Yeah.
she passed. My favorite all-time Betty White quote is that she said that someone said to her, "You know what makes me really mad?" And she said, "No. And I don't want to know." And I just think that's beautiful. Life was too short for Betty, even at almost 100 years, to deal with stuff that was making
what
people
makes
mad.
you mad.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a good thing for us to try to remember as we go to the sound. Oh, look, see, this is what happens, Ian. You didn't clear the cellophane from the top, and I almost
you
cut
almost got a
myself
cellophane cut on your
that
finger.
little extra ring of cellophane there. So I think it's time for some rye. How about you?
Oh, that was
I do that
perfect.
I was about to.
I was
about to do that.
Oh, that was
I'm
perfect.
really pleased
good.
with that.
Absolutely perfect.
Ian, what can you tell us about Templeton rye?
Made in Templeton.
Okay, that's Iowa, right?
Yeah. It's I don't know a whole lot about it, to be honest with you. I do know, and the fun part of this is that's a gift that I got at a White Elephant party. So my brew club does a Festivus party every year, and we
Dude.
did that last week.
Dude, I got to start coming to your White Elephant parties. The last one I went to, you know what I got? I got a wooden duck with a raincoat on.
There was so it wasn't that big of a party. There was less turnout than we usually had, but there were some really fun presents there, and pocket knives were given away. There were some nice pocket knives, but that's what I ended up with, and mine didn't end up getting traded. I was a little later in the lineup. If you know how a White Elephant
So you
party
got to
works.
hold on to the whiskey.
So I got to hold on to mine because everyone wanted to see what the last few presents were.
Yeah.
Is there a whammy in your group? Is there that person that brings a whammy to
There's
the gifts?
always, man. One of the gifts was
I think they all need to have
the
a
big
whammy.
bottle of the
Like a duck
combat
with a
bottle of the
raincoat on?
pot
Yes.
pot still reserve from Willett
Yeah.
was one of them. That one got traded off twice because and locked in. And then the guy that ended up with it immediately opened it and shared it with everybody, which was nice because then I didn't have to share my Templeton.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. Well, you're sharing it with us today, and I got to tell you, on the nose, it is a rye whiskey. I mean, it just has that.
Have you had Templeton
exactly?
before?
I don't think I've had Templeton.
Templeton
no.
is classic. It's a
Yeah.
very classic rye. It's one of the first ryes I've ever tried, and it's what introduced me to the style many years ago, and I've been a fan of it ever since. Because
and the style's had a huge comeback in the
right,
last
and
10
this
years
has
with
been around.
Whistle Pig and so many others.
This
just
has been around
making
before it
popular again.
became such a big
It
thing.
was
This
rye
is one of
before
the
rye was
few-
cool.
Yes, very much. And this is one of those that had just been in the industry, and if you knew what it was, you'd get it. But to me, this is a very classic rye. This is kind of what I put all ryes up against, because in my mind, this is the first one I had, and it's what rye tastes like.
Rye is actually one of my
that's good.
favorite kinds of whiskey because it just has
Smooth
such a
and
big
soft.
flavor.
Mm-hmm.
It's got it's maybe not as subtle as some. You get that real whiskey flavor on your palate right at the beginning.
So this one is sweet. It's sweet, and it's like he said, soft across the front of the palate, and it's also spicy in a rye way, and it has
Yeah.
a little bit of cinnamon going
Nice
on.
warming effect on the back of the throat.
Yeah, and then that hug comes back, and it's like that cinnamon, delicious, like fresh baked kind of taste in the back of your throat. It's really, really nice rye, if you ask me.
It's
It
a
makes
sort of-
great mixed drinks.
You're
Yeah.
very good at describing.
It's a sort of a,
You're very your
Yeah.
words. You're spot on. You did it
Thank
right now. It would've-
it's a sort of a gentle whiskey hug when it comes. It doesn't just sometimes a whiskey hug comes and it's like rah bear hug.
Right.
This is much more gentle.
This is sipping. This is
It totally is.
it is really nice.
This is good, and unfortunately we don't have ice with us right now, but if you ice it down a little bit, you get a very mineral water flavor to go along with everything you're tasting here, and
Well, I can
then
get a little trace of that on the finish.
and the cinnamon pops up a little bit more as cinnamon instead of like cinnamon kind of thoughts.
I was a little worried about, with this cigar having a little bit of sweetness from the tip, I was a little bit worried about how that would interact with this, since ryes are kind of inherently spicy. But they actually pair up really well. The sweet of the cigar, and again, it's a bit less now because I clipped the top off, so it's not quite as pronounced.
It's powerful at the front end.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of sweetness on the tip, but as you moisture your mouth,
But
kind of
this-
wicks some of it away.
This sweetness and the sweetness from the Templeton rye are very different kinds of sweetness, and then when the spice kind of kicks in on the finish, it's like, okay, that actually really works.
No, I don't know if you guys are getting this, or if it's just my cigar with this, but also when I take a puff from my cigar, now I get a little tingle on my tongue from it because of the rye effect on there. Because that spice from the rye, it's a nice flavor. It's a great rye, and I figured when you said, "Hey, do you have a whiskey for the show?" I was like, "Yes, I do, my friend. We haven't had this on there."
Well, it's really, and I don't have any Templeton in my bar at all. So this is a first for me to taste this. I like it.
And it's nice. It came in a gift pack with a set of whiskey stones, and we talked about that in between sets. Whiskey stones are they're stones that you put in your freezer, and they get cold. And you can put them in your whiskey, and it doesn't dilute your whiskey at all. And some people really like that effect. Me and Jason were talking about it just a little bit ago, and both realized that we kind of like the water, going in there. I like the experience personally of trying it neat, meaning nothing in it, and then adding a cube of ice and letting that melt down, taste it while it's cold as it waters down. And then I like it to go all the way where the ice is completely melted and start getting warm again, because you get so many different things. It's a huge experience. Yeah, it's a huge experience when you do it that way.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Is really good, just neat too.
Well, it says on the bottle the good stuff. I mean, it's it says it right there, fairly large.
I don't know why they put that on there. To me, that kind of cheapens the label a little bit. But then again, it might be like that's the way they've had that label forever, and that's just part of their label. I don't really know the history of it, but
I know this was a white elephant gift, but what does a bottle like that cost? If you were
at a guess, I think it's 40-ish.
Yeah,
but I'm not entirely sure. I could probably look it up. I am, however, about to grab another cigar, because as much as I hate to get rid of that one, what am I having next?
What direction are you going there, Ian?
I don't know. Have you had Fonseca before? I have not.
Well, I can recommend it, because that was the first one I smoked today, Ian, and I thought it was.
I think there's an order for smoking cigars. I'm a big advocate for the order you smoke cigars, so your palate can adjust accordingly through the course of the day.
Start lighter and then build?
Every day. I have 2 rules about smoking cigars. I probably told this on the first time we were together. Never smoke the same cigar twice in a day. Start lighter in the morning and kind of stair step up with strength and body as I go through the day.
Yeah, so I agree. The not smoking the same cigar twice in a day. Where did that come from? Is
Too many good cigars out there.
So
why would I want to limit myself?
Okay.
And heaven forbid you ever hit a rut and become. There's fine. People want to smoke one cigar every day, every single time, the same cigar. That's fine for them. Not me.
Even if you want to kind of stay in the same family. I mean, my father and Pepin and Jamie have so many different iterations. You could smoke a different my father cigar and stay that way for a week. A couple cigars a day.
Yes, you really could. They have. I forget the number. I want to say it's 18 or 19 brands that we have now. I think it's 19.
I love the
brands.
smell of the cigar.
I really enjoyed it, Ian. I don't know if I went in the right direction with that one first.
Just the pre-light sniff on this has different areas. Like over here, it's a little fermented hay. Down at the base of it, you get some barnyard and a little tea leaf kind of thing going on. It's really, really nice. Like fresh, crushed up tea leaves kind of thing. That's nice.
Now, you guys, we said we were going to talk about this, and I really want to get your thoughts on it, Jason. You guys had a cigar in the top 25 year-end list from Cigar Aficionado. The My Father the Judge Gran Robusto came in at number 17 on the list. What will that mean? Our good friend Alan Denning, who runs the Galveston Island Cigar Lounge.
Nobody knows who Alan Denning is.
Nobody
cares. A lot of people know who Alan is.
Nobody cares about him or Chris Hart, those guys. But Alan, that refers back to an email we got that we were always talking about Alan and the emailer. It wasn't an email; it was a review of the show, and the reviewer said nobody cares about those guys. So we've reminded.
You're going to get a lot of those reviews on this show.
We've reminded Alan of that
nobody cares
hundreds
about
of times over the subsequent years. But Alan, as people who are regulars on the show know, worked for E.P. Carrillo for some time before he went into the Galveston Island Cigar Lounge.
Yep.
And he was there when E.P. Carrillo got the #1 cigar of the year, and he said that it like almost supercharged the company. They got so much interest. They had had trouble filling orders for the Encore for the rest of the for the next year, but that it really kind of supercharged sales. Does that same thing happen when you're on the list but not number one? Does
No.
it have an elevating effect?
No,
Yeah.
not really. I think the typical response most people in the industry would say is there's number one and there's everybody else.
Okay.
It's the number one. Now you're going to have a plethora of non-serious smokers who want to smoke the number one cigar,
Right.
especially if it's in an affordable price range for them. And you're going to have a tremendous demand for that cigar.
Yeah, good
And
luck with
there
that this
is
year, by the way.
There
It's
obviously
the-
is a bump. I
Drone
see
Nation
that
60.
bump every year. That cigar that's in there gets a bump in
Yeah.
that. And but it's not as dramatic as the number one, obviously. There's a greater awareness of the cigar, so it will end up in people's hands. A lot of retailers, not so much now. In the old days, it was people would come in with the list and say, "I need one of everything you have on this list."
Wow.
And it's tempered down a little bit. But
Well, there's so many
it's-
lists for one thing. Yeah, Cigar Aficionado is one, but
Cigar Aficionado is one list, and they're great. They have their profiles that they like, and there's other lists. I used to do a compilation of all these lists for a newsletter that I send out to my retailers every month. And in February, I'd usually compile the list. And the lists, you really have to pay attention to the lists. My rules for if a list was going to make it in there, it couldn't be something that was, the person making the list could not be in the business of selling cigars. So it couldn't be a famous list, for example. Famous
Right,
Cigars
right.
makes their list. It's obviously they've got a vested interest in what
yeah.
that list is.
What do we have a lot of in stock? Okay, make that number 2.
And it could not be a single person's list either. That's just one person's personal. It had to be some sort of a committee list. I like Half Wheel's list.
Yeah.
I like
Half-Wheel's
Cigar
a go-to.
Snob's list.
Yeah, I like Cigar Snob.
I think there are a lot of very, very good lists. And if you're going to look at lists, then I think you ought to look at a list of where there's a compilation of people's opinions.
Well, it's
and they're
interesting.
not invested in the outcome of this list. They're not selling cigars.
Yeah.
Those are the lists that you should look at.
It's interesting that you say that because one of the lists I was looking at this week, and I won't go through all 25 cigars on the list, but Half Wheel does something similar to what you were talking about. They do a consensus list where
There's a good list.
They look at all the lists, and it's based on 45 different media publications, and they say it's not our list. They do have their own list of their top 25, but in their consensus list, Underground 10 was number 1, Sin Compromiso, Paladin de Saca was number 2. I'm not familiar with that
No
cigar
idea what
at
that
all.
is, yeah.
And the Adventura, the Royal Return Queen's Pearls, was number 4. Then Joya de Nicaragua, 200, and Supreme Leaf from Aganorsa Leaf was number 5. So it's a very interesting list because already in the top 5, I've had one of those. One.
Yeah.
So and I try a lot of cigars. So that's an interesting list. And supposedly that was compiled from, putting all these lists together.
My only question would be, what are all these lists? If they're individual single persons making, spouting off about their opinion, or if it's a list from a vested interest company who sells cigars, and those to me should be disqualified.
Right.
I don't know. I do like the list overall. I think Half Wheel does a very good job of compiling information and making sense of it, and then sharing that to the consumers.
So here's what they say about their consensus list qualifications.
Oh,
for Half Wheel. Number 1, any list created by a media member published on a media website is eligible so long as that author or publication has reviewed at least one cigar in 2021. Any list created by someone who works for a cigar company or a cigar retailer is excluded. They allowed for lists created by employees of cigar stores, but excluded the lists that were clearly made by cigar retailers. It's sort of an honor system, they say. They don't verify where people are not employed, but it does exclude some lists. Honorable mentions were largely excluded unless the list was largely made up of honorable mentions. No user-voted or user-driven lists were used. The publication must meaningfully exist on a platform other than just Facebook or Instagram, and it had to be published by the 21st of January. So that was their...
Have you ever...
Sounds fair.
Have you ever woken up in the morning after the dew is hit, and there's a field where they've had hay freshly cut? That's what this cigar is right now. It just has that fresh cut, wonderful hay kind of
But it's
dew
not
in
like
the air.
it's not
Again,
like
that's the
funky,
Fonseca you're speaking about.
Yeah, it's not like the funky barnyard hay though. It's
No, it's
that's
not
a different.
And
thing.
I got a little barnyard on a pre-light sniff, which was also nice. But this really has that beautiful. I want to use the word outdoorsy, but that's not the right word. It's very much that early in the morning dew, sun's just hitting it kind of thing. It's really nice.
Very nice. I like it.
I feel like I'm selling coffee.
So I know you mentioned that you don't smoke the same cigar more than once a day, and you talked about there being a world of cigars out there. In the lineup of what you represent, do you have one though that's your sort of like favorite?
I have a few.
Yeah.
I have a few go-to cigars. As I said, the Vegas Cubanas is one of my go-to morning cigars. That I also absolutely love the La Aguilera, Connecticut. Then when you get to the stronger, the middle, you can never go wrong with the Florida Las Antillas.
Yeah.
But I
Such a good
also
cigar.
absolutely, and I'm not usually I'm not a big Toro fan. I like smaller ring gauges, but the JJ Series, Don Pepin Garcia, JJ Series White Label is fantastic. It is still one of my top 3 cigars from them. Yeah. And then past that point, I absolutely love the Judge in the Corona Gorda or the Toro Fino, which is actually a real Toro. That's a 6x52, but we call it a Toro Fino.
Show number 267. Jason Pohler is our guest. We'll be ready. Welcome back, my friends. It is Smokin' and Toastin', and we're doing both today. We are in the VIP lounge at Serious Cigars, Casa De Montecristo. It was Serious Cigars for so long that I have a hard time not still including that in their name.
Now it's Serious Cigars by Casa Monte Cristo.
Or is it the other way around? It's either way you go. It's a great place, and we want to say hi to Steve and Ken and the guys here that are always so gracious to give us a place to come and smoke and work, and we try to return the favor by shopping in their humidor any chance we
The
get.
crew here is particularly awesome.
Yeah, they really are.
Nice.
They really
Super
are.
nice.
Great big humidor, and I used to shop from them all the time, even before they moved into this
When they were on the
more spacious
Richmond location.
Yeah,
I used to shop over
I used
there.
to go over all the time. I remember
They
I always
also
used
have
to,
a decent selection of pipes and pipe tobacco.
yes,
as
they
well.
do, which is also good. And because of the craziness across the holidays, we didn't get to do our pipe show for 2021, so we'll be lining one of those up here pretty soon.
Yeah, I need to go speak with Austin up there at Briar Shop.
At the Briar Shop,
Maybe
yep.
set that up pretty
Absolutely.
soon.
Well, the time has come for those of you who are, I don't know if we were doing this the last time we had you on the show or not, but we've been doing it for quite a while now, Jason, and it has become, at least based on anecdotal feedback, the most popular segment on the show. And it's a little something we call Drinking News.
Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
Hang on, I wasn't quite ready. I have to enter my code. Let's go with...
when asked about his absent arm, he said,
Took my gator to the vet.
Okay, let's just go back and do that whole verse again, shall we? Because I just screwed that up.
Drinking news. Now it's time again for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
I had to take my gator to the vet.
drinking news.
Much better.
Drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. So one of
done.
the things about Drinking News that I always look forward to is anytime we can start the report with 3 important words.
The words that make you realize you're about to hear something special.
And those words are true today. A Florida man
Yeah.
is currently incarcerated, and it is all thanks to the Wonder Food. That's right. That's right, my friends.
Soylent Green?
The state of Florida, as well as all of us who live everywhere else in the world, can now thank bacon for putting another drunk a-hole behind bars.
Oh.
Yep. Martin Jose
Bacon did
Alvarez.
this. Bacon does a lot. I didn't know that it was
Is there
also
anything
law
it can't do?
enforcement.
Give it a badge.
That's a ripoff from The Simpsons when Homer Simpson says, "Beer. Is there anything it can't do?" Martin Jose Alvarez was arrested last week in Florida for allegedly causing a disturbance at a Cape Coral Waffle House. Because
Surprise.
Waffle House.
on.
according
A
to
Waffle House. That's
Don't mess
madness.
with Waffle House.
according to local officials, the disturbance was apparently over the way the Waffle House cooked his bacon. Now, all of us know, or should know, that the proper way to cook bacon, and I'm not talking about the thick, slab bacon like they serve at B&B Butchers and other fine steakhouses and dining establishments. So I'm talking regular thin sliced bacon. And the proper way to cook it is as crispy as possible without burning it, or if I'm going to be completely honest, burning it just a little to get that just little tiny
With a
bit
slight char.
that makes it so good. But you have to understand, your chances of getting it cooked just right, just crispy enough, at a Waffle House are about as high as the chances of Cardi B speaking in complete grammatically correct sentences. Or it could happen. Just like Budweiser could make a delicious, well-crafted beer. It's just, as the British would say, not bloody likely. It's a Waffle House.
Right.
So all of that said, authorities in Florida have not confirmed the crispness or lack thereof of the bacon in question. But according to television reports, it has been confirmed that Alvarez yelled, "You better cook the effing bacon right," before starting to shout racial slurs at the Waffle House workers and resisting officers until they threatened him with a taser.
That's how you know you're going to get your food in the best way possible,
Yeah.
when you start yelling at
Yeah.
the people making it,
Yeah, and-
especially racial slurs.
And
Those
I'm-
Waffle House employees have enough to worry about.
Oh
I was
yeah,
just-
man,
I was just
they're
about to
working
say.
hard. Like
Give them a break.
I was just about to say, I may have bagged on Waffle House a little here, but don't bag on the Waffle House employees.
no, come on, like
They're
those
wonderful.
people
They're
are
doing
those
it, yeah.
people are doing like 6 things at once, and I don't even know how you keep track of all that when they just start yelling stuff out.
Oh,
I
know.
love that part.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
it's the fun part, right? But no, Waffle House employees, we stand in solidarity with you.
yes,
and
yes,
we
yes.
tip.
So, just for giggles, and I'll wrap this up in just a moment, but just for giggles, one year for Valentine's Day, Waffle House did a Valentine's dinner.
That was it's like 2019 or 2018.
Yeah,
I
me and my wife.
You went
I
to-
wanted to go there.
Me and my
Took
wife
your to
did
the
that.
Waffle House for
You did?
Valentine's.
Yeah, we did.
How was it?
It was fun.
I wanted to do that.
The candles almost lit the table on fire.
That's so great.
The manager, you could tell, was incredibly nervous. He was just trying to make everything perfect, and it was endearing and wonderful. The steak was Waffle House steak.
Yeah.
So let's just
You
leave
get,
that
you
there.
get what you get, right?
It's a Waffle House,
Waffle
not a
House.
steakhouse. They make waffles.
Just like you don't expect to get great waffles at a steakhouse.
But
Exactly.
let me just tell you, the whole experience was a blast. We enjoyed it, and it was fun to do something. I hate to use the term lowbrow, but it was fun to do something a little off the beaten path for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, I love that.
And we had a blast with it. We did that, and then went out and had drinks, and it was a fun.
I love it.
Fun
That's
night,
a
yeah.
great idea. See, I think that's very creative. The suspect, Alvarez, who is 28 years old, is facing charges of disorderly intoxication, go figure, resisting an officer, and simple assault, according to television reports. And he's currently held at the Lee County Jail. So, in celebration of the fact that one of the greatest foods on earth played a role in getting a racist bastard put behind bars, I've written a poem in honor of the wonder food, and I'd like to share it with you now, if I can.
Can I offer you some background
Please
music?
do. Please do.
Underscore your poem.
Some bacon poetry music. There once was a Florida man who liked bacon crisp fried in a pan. His Waffle House protest and resisting arrest have now landed his racist ass to the can. Hey, would you look at that? I'm a poet and I didn't even know it.
Drinking news.
That's awesome.
Drinking news. That's time for drinking news.
And you got a limerick in there too.
Cheers, y'all. I'm just a firm believer that anytime you can work in a limerick, you should.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You absolutely should.
If
So-
you have the opportunity, it should be.
That
there.
would have been a very different limerick if it had happened in Nantucket instead of Florida.
You know, I almost opened it that way just because of what that always means. But there was a young woman from Venus and all of that. So wow, I'm very actually really pleasantly surprised at how much I'm enjoying this cigar. The sweetness, now that I took the tip off of it, has tamped down, but it's just the tiniest bit of it there to kind of keep things interesting. And the rest, I mean, look how perfect that
I
burn
haven't
is.
had that particular cigar, and I hope to try that soon. There's a few sweet tip cigars on the market that are quite nice. And that's the key, is to have a real cigar that happens to have a sweet
Right.
tip, not having an infused cigar. Because that, to me, I mean, that's like when people light patchouli in a room, like that will run me right out.
Well, now I will say though, there are some of the Drew Estate acids that I find when I'm in the mood for that, I can really enjoy the Cuba Cuba,
The Cuba Cuba, the dirt,
the
the
what is
natural
one?
line.
I call it Long Island iced tea, but it's something else, sweet infusion tea or something like that.
I haven't
is
had
also a very good one. But I have to be in the mood for that. It's not my. It's kind of like. I don't know. It's kind of like some desserts. Like they're really good, but you got to be in the mood for them. It's
Yeah,
not your.
very
It's not your
much.
go-to. It's not Girl Scout cookies, which you can eat anytime and pair with delicious beers, just freely. And we encourage you, by the way, to
So
do
what
that.
do you think about the cigar, the aspect? If you were to smoke that without a sweet tip, how would it smoke?
Well,
for you?
I think first of all that it's smoking so beautifully, and it's got
yeah,
a really
that's
nice.
burning like a laser there.
It's got a really nice balance of flavors to it. I mean, apart from the sweetness, it's got a little bit of toastiness to it, some nutty vibes, and a real sort of basic earth note to it that I think is really enjoyable. And it's got, in addition to the sort of on the lip sweetness of the tip, it's got that kind of rich Maduro sweetness to the tobacco too, which is
That cigar
which works
came
really
out in
well.
2020, just as the pandemic was hitting us. It came out in the spring of 2020, and it's the sister or brother to the Connecticut version, which has been around forever.
Right,
it's
and that's pretty
extremely,
popular,
yeah,
too.
very popular. So a lot of those
What's
cigars.
the Connecticut version called? Is it the same?
It's a Rough Rider.
Okay,
It's
gotcha.
Rough Rider
Rough
Connecticut.
Rider.
It comes in a few different sizes. The Maduro has 4 sizes. The Connecticut has 7 sizes.
Yeah, okay.
It's been very, very popular for many years. I think this Maduro will probably expand in sizes soon too. But the Connecticut is super clean. I've cut it off with no flavor and just smoked it as a regular cigar. No sweetness, I mean. No, cut off the sweetness. And it smokes very, very light and very, very clean. So as a person who would just like to try cigars out and who doesn't want to be overpowered or have anything that will leave a really strong taste in their mouth, for example, I think that Connecticut is the way to go. You'll have a sweetness if you want it, but again, you could clip past it,
Yeah.
smoke it. It's very clean, very soft, very light cigar.
I have a tendency to gravitate towards Maduros, maybe more so than
Same here.
than any others, and so there's a real difference to me in Maduros that really give that sort of rich, earthy sweetness, and ones where it's I don't know, where it's just a little bit different. I realize Maduro there's a process of curing, but I like not to think about curing when I'm in the flavor. You know what I mean? I don't want to think about it that way. I just want to get the richness that seems to come from that.
Good wrap relief. A good Maduro wrap relief will tend to be on the lighter side because of its
Right.
extra time in the fermentation zone. It will also bring out more of the natural sweetness in it. What so many Maduros in the market now is that you have maybe a beautiful, tasty Maduro wrap relief, but you can't tell because it's overpowered by the filler leaf.
Right.
Again, when you go back to the Lajeros and things, I think that was another byproduct of the 90s,
Yes,
overpowering.
trying to be the strong guest.
The strongest cigars. Maybe I said this to you last time we were on the call or the show. My father said in the 80s and early 90s, 95 or so % of the American market cigars were 3 wrappers: Connecticut, Candela, and Maduro. And Maduro was sweet and light. That's what it was. That's what a real Maduro smoke was for so many decades before that. And then within a few years, suddenly dark means strong came out. And I think it was from harshness and bad cigars being rushed to the market.
And that's
cigars.
not totally true either.
It's not true at all.
A Maduro doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a strong cigar. It just
Correct,
means it's
yeah.
gonna
The
have a
Aguilera Maduro, the Aguilera, not the Rough Rider Maduro, the Aguilera Maduro is a good example. It is a medium to medium plus bodied and strength cigar, but you can really taste that nice sweetness. It's malty and creamy on the up front side. It has, as you retrohale, you get the sweetness in the back of the throat.
Nice. Retrohale, I think, is a very important part of cigars.
Of the cigar experience, yeah, absolutely.
A manufacturer explained that to me. Luckily, when I was very early in the business, I'd smoked cigars for a long time, but I didn't retrohale. And he said, you're leaving probably 80 to 90% of the flavor on the table when you don't retrohale the cigar.
Right.
It really does enhance your experience.
So, Ian, if there's people that don't understand, explain exactly how retrohale works.
So the retrohale, and you could do this when you're drinking whiskey, by the way. There's a retrohale to whiskey. Anything strong on the palate does that. But a retrohale with a cigar is when you take a puff and generally hold it in your mouth, and then you gently express it from your nose.
And this is not the same, by the way, as inhaling.
No, do not inhale a cigar. You'll be very sad. And you will cough a lot and quite
ruin your experience.
You might get sick.
Yeah. It's not a pleasant cigar experience.
No, there's
for sure.
Don't inhale cigars. But you really if you do that and you get used to it. Now, some cigars, especially on very strong cigars, it can have a little burning effect on the nose, a little bit of too spicy, like hot mustard does in the back of your sinuses,
Exactly the way.
or horseradish has that same effect. But on most cigars that retrohale unleashes, on all cigars, the retrohale unleashes so much of the flavor and enhances the whole thing. It's like putting a little drop of water in your whiskey. If you're one of those people that only drinks whiskey neat, you're missing a lot. So the retrohale really does open up a lot of flavors, and once you get those flavors in your nasal palate, so to speak, it really carries over for the rest of the smoke. You don't have to retrohale every single time you take a puff, but if you do it once in a while, you'll find that you're going to get a lot more flavor and a lot more flavor complexity out of your cigar.
And I'll just mention too, if you're trying it, especially if you're trying it, for the first time, or if you haven't done it a lot, you don't have to exhale the entire amount of smoke from your nose. If you just let a little out, and it feels like might be a little strong, you let the rest out of your mouth, and then try it again in a moment. It's an easy way to get more of those flavors on, like you were saying, the nasal palate.
There's also a little bit, if you're not used to it too, it's a little bit shocking at first to your nasal palate, so to speak. So much like taking your first sip of whiskey. You don't take one sip of whiskey after having no whiskey whatsoever all day and then draw all your conclusions from that first sip. That's not the way it works, because you have that initial palate shock. Well, the retrohale is going to have that same kind of effect. You usually have to do it a time or two, a few times, and then once you're used to it, you start being able to parse out those flavors and make sense out of it. And like with this cigar in particular, this cigar has this great like white pepper spice in the back of the palate. It has a very the hay that I mentioned earlier, that fresh cut hay and those kind of things, and a bunch of earth going on. And when I do the retrohale on this, I start getting some sweet bread kind of notes out of it.
Right.
That really is nice, and a little bit of nuttiness that is hidden sometimes by the initial puff. So you end up with a lot more flavors.
I really enjoyed that cigar. That was the first one that I had when we sat down to open the show. And I don't think I mentioned it, but I thought that you guys did a wonderful job kind of merging the classic Fonseca cigar label with the My Father look. I mean, it really does look like both, as opposed to looking like sort of a hodgepodge. It like really works.
All of their artwork is done internally. They have a wonderful guy in the office who does that work for them, and all the artwork on the My Father boxes and bands comes from his desk, and he does a marvelous
job. My Father
job.
labels are classy.
Speaking of great artwork, the last beer we're going to try today is from Saloon Brewing, and maybe you can hand that to Adam, because it's the Banana Bandit is the name of the beer. And I just thought that's one of the coolest
the Hamburglar
beer labels. Yeah,
it does look a little bit like
the banana Hamburglar. I just thought they did just such a great job on that. Saloon is very much an up-and-coming brewery. And what's interesting, Ian, is we've already had today...
They're in Webster, I think,
Webster,
right?
yeah, Webster, Texas. We've already had today a Berliner Weiss, or a Berliner-style beer, that had a much higher ABV than most Berliners.
Right.
This is a cream ale that's going to come in at 9%.
That's pretty big.
You don't expect that generally from a cream ale. You're usually expecting more like 5.
I'm going to let this cat out of the bag. I have had this.
Oh, okay. So do you want to talk about it while I do the honors here?
So I was over at Alan Denny's house, actually, for his birthday, and he had some of that.
Alan had beer at his house?
Yeah, surprising, right?
Imagine
Alan,
that. Next thing you're going to tell me you guys smoke cigars.
Alan's pretty organized at his house,
Yeah.
right? He's got a beer fridge right outside his back door.
Yeah.
So if you're ever walking by his house, you know.
I
you
was
can- you
sick,
can
by
go
the
help
way.
yourself.
I was like unable to attend
But,
this party, but I do want to stress that I was invited.
He's got this beer fridge, and that beer fridge is for the pedestrian beer.
Right.
So if you're gonna have, you know, your normal go-tos, your
And when you say pedestrian, you don't mean like Bud Light and Michelob Ultra.
no, but just the you'll find them anywhere kind of beers.
Right.
Yingling and Lone Star, those kind
Shinerbach
of things.
and-
Shinerbach,
yeah,
those all go into that fridge. Then he has a second fridge, which is basically for his wife's beers.
Okay. What is his wife?
And then on top of that's because that one's a smaller fridge. And then on top of the smaller fridge is the beer fridge that has all of the absolutely ridiculous beers like Saloon doors
Yeah.
and stuff like that, because he loves big, ridiculous beers. So my wife saw that label and was like, I have to try that. So I tried it, and it is interesting. And here's the thing. It doesn't look like what you'd expect, does it?
No, doesn't look like a cream ale. You're expecting a lighter color and that sort of creamy look of like a Buckle Bunny or something like that.
Right, and then when you smell it, there's a creaminess to it. You get the obvious banana, but there's a creamy kind of ish.
So here's what I want to mention about the nose on this. We talk a lot about Hefeweizens and some other beers having like a banana vibe to them, having a banana note. This is a completely different kind of banana note. This literally smells like you have put a bowl of crushed, smushed banana.
Well, let's
up to your
explain-
nose.
Nut bread.
Let's
yeah,
explain.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I definitely. That's a good call on that. But let's explain the difference. This is not a banana flavored beer. It doesn't have banana flavor.
Right.
Because banana flavor doesn't really taste like banana. If you've
Right.
ever had like a banana taffy or something, it doesn't really taste like banana.
Right, that's well
This
said.
actually tastes much more like an actual banana.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not sickly banana flavored sweet.
Right, it's
but
not like
it
banana
has-
candy.
Right,
It's
it has
like
real
banana.
banana actual flavor.
Banana, as they say.
Banana.
In
As
the
the
UK.
banana.
I'm drinking like Trump.
I think this is not only interesting but extremely drinkable. A lot of times when you get a beer that's going this far to achieve a particular flavor, it's interesting. You appreciate tasting it, but it's not necessarily something you want to,
So
There's a lot of spice going
Drink
on.
it.
in
there
this.
is.
yes.
It's almost like a fruitcake kind of spice going on. Heavy on the banana,
and a little bit
Is
of
it
that,
maybe.
and a little bit
That's a
of that
good
sort of
call.
baking spice vibe
Yeah.
to it as well.
But here's another thing it has. It has hops, and that hop bittering at the end cuts off all the sweetness almost on the aftertaste.
Right.
And leaves you remembering that you actually had a beer, not
Not a
some
fruity drink of some sort. Yeah.
So it's kind of nice like that. Saloon Door does so many bizarre beers. They're not quite as out there as Ingenious is with their beers.
Very few,
But they're
breweries
not
are.
afraid to try some crazy things. And I've been to that brewery. It's a nice little location in a business park out in Webster, which is south of Houston if you're headed towards Galveston. It's I think right about the midway point maybe.
If you're in Webster and you want to explore beer, I'm sure you guys have been to Beers Looking at You.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great
and it's right
place.
next to a cigar shop.
Yeah.
Very,
You gotta love
very
the
convenient, and
Yeah,
that is
so
a
you
great
go-
place to try new beers. They've got them all on tap before you take them home. You can try them out. I love
and
that
they'll let
place.
you try them so you can. And then their selection of beer there is fantastic. I've actually gone down to the cigar shop and hung out, and it's nice. You could just set your cigar down, walk next door, buy beer,
That's Smoke Ring.
come back, smoke ring, and then go right back into the shop and enjoy your beer and your cigar. See, I'm the only person who hasn't dropped one on me, an ash on me
I
today.
actually I even missed my shoe, but just barely.
Well, so the conversation's so captivating. I forget the look.
I have that effect
cigar
on
get away
people.
from me.
Well, we often do that, and we really love doing these live shows at a place like Casa De Montecristo, because in the studio we don't get to smoke during the show, and it's interesting because one of the things that's so enjoyable about cigars is how the flavor evolves and shifts, and the ability to actually say, what is it like to try the Banana Bandit and then go back to the cigar, which, by the way, is quite nice.
So mine goes okay. I like the Templeton with the cigar though.
I am shocked when you pulled this one out and talked about the banana. I was just convinced I wasn't going to like it, but I do. I do. I don't know how it's. Again, it's sort of like that earlier one that I mentioned with cider. It's rich. Don't think I can have more than a couple of these, but it is very tasty. I'm enjoying this.
Well,
and you're drinking a beer, like you said.
Right.
That's a
Yeah,
good
at the
point.
end,
It's
you're
not.
absolutely right.
It is. You're drinking a beer.
And the banana flavor is authentic banana flavor, not banana flavor in air quotes.
Right,
I mean,
you
it's
mentioned
like
the banana taffy. So many of the beers where we say it has like a note of banana or a hint of banana, it's that sweeter sort of candy banana.
well, and even
that's
a
not
lot
what
of
this is
like Hefeweizens that have that banana character to it have a little more of that kind of character versus what an actual banana tastes like.
Speaking of Hefeweizens, I just have to raise my hand for El Jefe from No Label
No
in
Label, yeah.
Katy. That may be the finest Hefeweizen I've ever had.
There's two. I'm not a big fan of Hefeweizens overall, but there's two that I think are absolutely outstanding, and that's going to be the El Jefe from No Label, and then the Live Oak.
The Live Oak is quite good.
Hefeweizen is unbelievable.
Quite good. Well, this has been a very interesting show, and Jason, we want to thank you for being here and sharing this with us. We do have one more short segment left, so we're going to take a break and come back and kind of wrap things up. Tell you what's coming up on our next episodes of Smokin' and Toastin'. We're going to have a busy year.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, a very busy and exciting year. And I just wanted to throw it out there. We kind of put the whole thing on hold during our COVID time. But if things do wind up clearing up, we are making plans to bring the whiskey sniff back once again. And that's something we're very excited about because, and we'll explain to you in the next segment how the whiskey sniff works. But it's something we've done 2 of them. They've been a great deal of fun. Everybody seemed to really enjoy them, and so we want to expand it, maybe make it a little bigger, and bring it back. We're hoping in the fall. So we'll
I'm
tell you about
excited.
that. We'll tell you about
Super
that
exciting.
coming up. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. We'll be right back, and thanks for joining us for show number 267.
In the beginning.
Welcome back. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. We are live at the Casa De Montecristo in Houston. There are a couple of Casa locations here. We're at the one that's at 610 and 59, which I believe was at least at one time, I don't know if it still is, but it was at least at one time the busiest highway intersection in the United States.
I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah.
it still is. It's crazy out there.
It's always jammed.
Yeah, it's a little nuts. And they continue to work on it and expand it, and yet for some reason no one seems to have suggested having more than one exit lane from 59 to 610 if you're going north. I don't understand that. It's always packed slow. Why don't they make an extra lane? But I'm not an engineer, so I'm just a humble cigar smoker. So
Right.
I don't know these
I think the problem is when they add more lanes to the freeway, then more cars get on those lanes,
Right.
and then you have the same amount of traffic on more lanes.
Yeah. And there's a stretch of I-10 over by Aguilera here in Houston where I believe it is, if you count the feeder roads, I believe it is 26 lanes from one side to the other.
Absolutely.
What?
Crazy.
It's insane. Well, if you think about it, it's like 5 or
There's-
6 lanes each way. There's
There's
multiple HOV
3
lanes.
to 4 lanes on the feeder.
Yeah,
and
right,
On each
right.
side.
Yeah, and so by the
Oh,
time you
wow,
add it
okay.
up, it's
I see.
crazy. It's crazy. And
There's
yet
also
still
I
traffic
read
slows
a
down there.
stat, and I don't remember where I read it, so don't nail me on this. But when they expanded I-10 all the way out through Katy, they actually added 10 minutes to the drive.
I think that's probably true. But think about if they hadn't done that. Like like, not to bag on our next door neighbors in Austin, but there's a city where they did not do the planning and they did not add the extra lanes, and Austin traffic is worse going home in the afternoon than Houston traffic
Yeah,
is.
but the
Yes.
difference.
Thank you for saying
That's
that.
It
true.
is.
That's true. But
It
the
is
difference,
at least on 35.
But the difference is, if you're stuck in traffic hour in Austin, it's an hour. In
Because Austin isn't that wide.
In
Yeah.
Houston, traffic starts at about 3:45 in the afternoon
Yeah.
and doesn't give up until like 6:30.
Well, I will just say this.
It's crazy.
If you live in Austin, there's so many great breweries there. There's so many great brew pubs. Just go hang
pull
out
over.
at one of them for a
Pull
little
over.
while and wait for traffic to
I was
die
in
down.
Austin.
Or barbecue.
I was
Or
in
barbecue.
Austin the last time, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna stop and get my truck wash at this little place, and they had free beer from the brewery right across from it. Like, you just walk in and you're getting your truck washed, and you serve yourself a free beer or three.
I think
That
that's
is a
saying
business plan.
I go through there on my way south regularly, and I have to try to time it. And if I don't time it right, thank God they have that tollway that comes around the side.
Yeah.
And you hop on that tollway, it's 80 miles per hour on the tollway, and at 85, and that's a stretch that part that comes south of Austin, it goes towards Lockhart. 85. I understand that's the only place in the United States that you can legally drive
The
85
speed limit
miles.
is 85. Wow,
85.
that's great.
Huh.
Of course.
Yeah, because even down
And you
even
can
on
haul.
I-10,
Yeah,
it's
that's a
75
you
and-
pay a little bit, but it saves so much time.
Well, I'm a big believer in toll roads. It's like there's very few times when your money is better spent than taking the
Yeah,
toll
if you
road.
put money versus time, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to explain the whiskey sniff, Jason, because we'd love for you to be a part of the next one that we do. The way the whiskey sniff worked, it really was all born from something that Ian does at home when he's going to have a cigar and have some whiskey. Ian, explain how the sniff actually works. I'll
Anybody
take a little
else?
more. Thank you.
Oh, I won't say no, but I don't need to. I put all my cups over there.
Oh, do you have an extra
Here,
cup?
I'll give you an extra one. I have one right
All
here.
right, we're pouring
I've
more
been trying
whiskey
to
here.
tidy up as we go along.
And that's appreciated. So Ian, when he's at home and he wants to smoke a cigar and have whiskey, has a particular ritual he goes through that he has dubbed the whiskey sniff. And explain how that works.
So this came about from I spent a lot of time on the phone with my brothers, but and so I'll have my Bluetooth thing on and I'll stand outside or I'll do stuff. But we got to chatting, and I would go outside and I would light a cigar, and I'd wait till I was about an inch into the cigar, really get the cigar on my palate. And then, once you have a reasonable whiskey collection going, which takes a little while because you have to actually end up with more whiskey than you can drink.
Right.
I'm working on that right now.
Yeah.
I'm literally
And
trying to build a
And by the
whiskey
way,
collection
Once
up.
you cross that line,
I'd just like to
it
mention-
gets easier.
Right. I've just like to mention, I've crossed that line in my house with whiskey, but I have not been successful at rum
Right.
because my wife loves rum. And so I just can't stay ahead of, and I drink it too. It's not
Yeah,
just
and,
her.
and so,
But,
so the
Why do
problem
all
is,
these bottles have holes in the bottom? They're leaking out someplace.
yeah,
Where's
so
all
the
this rum
problem is
going?
if you only have like 2 or 3 bottles of good whiskey,
yeah,
you're just going to drink them.
Right.
But once you start getting a good collection going, so I had gotten myself a decent collection going where I had quite a few scotches and a few whiskeys, and I never knew exactly which whiskey to have. So what I started doing is I'd get an inch into my cigar and really get that cigar on my palate, and then I would go inside and I'd pop the top on a whiskey and just give it a sniff, and you will know, just because you have that cigar on your palate, you'll know which ones will go really well. Now, a lot of them, you might go, okay, this smells pretty good with the cigar on my palate, but you'll find one that you go, that's the one I want
That's
right
the one
now.
I want. Yeah, yeah.
And it works every single time, flawless, because your palate is telling you what's going to go with it.
So Ian was telling the
100%.
story on the show, and I said, that sounds like an event. And so the Smokin' and Toastin' Whiskey Sniff was born. And the way that it works is people buy tickets, and when you arrive at the sniff, you are handed a bag of cigars.
The swag bag.
Yeah, a swag bag with a handful of cigars inside. You rummage through, pick out what you want and what you want to smoke. You light that cigar up, and then you walk around. We've got vendors from all the different spirit companies, mostly whiskey, but we always have a few rums and tequilas
Yeah.
and maybe a gin and a few other things. And the idea is once you've got that cigar on your palate, you go around and you sniff, and then you sample what you want to try with your cigar. And because there's so many there, you have the luxury of trying more than just one.
So
You
they'll
know,
have
you
a
try little
sample.
you-
They'll have
yeah.
a sample of those. You could just pick it up and put it to your nose, and go, "Wow, that really is going to work," or "It's really not."
And then they'll pour you one in your glass.
And I found it's 100%.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So that's the way the
It's
whiskey sniff
100%.
works.
You know, I mean, if that method doesn't work for you, then your nose is broken.
So, right. So we've
Or
been,
you have COVID.
so we've been talking with Chris Hart and Alan Denny, who do the, as far as we're concerned, the greatest spirit event that
The
ever
Whiskey
is.
Social
The
is
Whiskey Social.
amazing.
And we're talking about teaming up with those guys to bring the sniff back whenever it is time. I want to mention, and we've extended an invitation to Chris to come back on the show, because they're also about to branch out, and coming up a little later this year, they're going to be doing the first, and I'm so excited, agave social. That is going to be awesome. So it's going to be tequila and mezcal and sotol and other agave-based spirits, and I absolutely,
Give me so many flashbacks.
absolutely can't wait. Jason Pohler is our special guest this week. Coming up next week, and we've tried to do this a couple of times, and his other duties have called him away, but we are confirmed that Trey Boring will be joining us on next week's show.
Trey is so
Trey
fun.
is not only is he a huge advocate and a very active member of the Cigars for Warriors program, but he's also extremely knowledgeable as an attorney in the legal side of things. And so when we talk about all of the proposed regulations, what's going to happen, what's not likely to happen, Trey is great at clearing that up for us. Plus, he just enjoys smoking and drinking with us. So
He will be a great guest.
We'll be looking forward to having him back on. And then the following Thursday, our Smoking and Toasting wine expert, Mark Burrell, will join us on the show. That will be the show before Valentine's Day.
That's so
and he'll be
fun.
bringing wines that'll be great for your
So fun.
Valentine's dinner and to really impress your significant
And
other.
by the way, they're getting booked up, and if they're not completely booked up for Valentine's Day at the Rainbow Lodge,
Yeah.
we looked at it, and like the
You
earliest.
did a Valentine's Day there, didn't you?
Well, we
Or
did.
no, it was
we
an
did it
anniversary.
after Valentine's
Yeah,
Day. Valentine's Day, but we looked at it for this year, and by the time we looked at it, the earliest available was like 9:45 already. So.
My wife and I have a tendency to do our Valentine's dinner not on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, we
'cause it's
generally do
easier,
that, too.
Easier to find what you want, and then on Valentine's Day we'll just have something cool at home.
Valentine's going to be a Tuesday this year, right?
That
Monday,
It's a
actually.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, a Monday.
It's a
even-
Monday.
even
It's a
worse.
Monday. It's the day after the Super Bowl, and it is like somewhere. I forget. I don't think I have St. Patrick's Day, but it's not too terribly long from Valentine's Day to St.
They
Patrick's Day.
still doing the Super Bowl?
Believe it or not.
Dallas, from Dallas. I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't seen one in like 26 years, 27
Hey,
years,
listen,
28 years.
I'm a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. I'm a Brady guy, so now they're out, and so I don't really care who wins.
I'm going now.
lost
Now I'm
all
rooting
it.
for the Chiefs. I'm for the Chiefs the rest of the way.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. Tough for me to root for the Chiefs. I'll probably root for whoever's playing the Chiefs.
Chiefs used to be the Dallas. They used to be the Dallas Texans.
Dallas Texans, that's true.
So if they have roots, the Hunts family, and I was actually born in Kansas City. Don't say that. Can we delete that part?
Well, and of course, Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback, was a Texas Tech product. So
yes.
there's a lot of Texas fans that will root for him, especially once the Cowboys get eliminated, which seems to happen a lot. We live, of course, here in Houston, where our football team was eliminated from contention week 3. So it's just the way that
I
it
do
goes.
appreciate that Dallas has decided to follow Detroit in getting beat every year at Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
as well.
it's a Thanksgiving thing.
They're like, you know what?
Count on the
They're not the
count on the
only.
Cowboys.
They're not the only club that can get beat every year at Thanksgiving. We're going to do that too.
Also coming up on the show in the weeks to come, Peter Clifton, one of our cocktail experts, will be back. to mix
He's fun, yeah.
Cocktails with it, and that'll be fun. And then Jordan Davis with Heaven's Door, the Bob Dylan
Yeah.
whiskey company, will be joining us, and that is one of those.
Not to be taken lightly.
Yeah.
Heaven's Door is fantastic.
That's one of those celebrity whiskeys that really punches above its above its weight class. And so the last time he was here, we got to sample some of their $400 a bottle whiskey.
Amazing, yeah.
As their ultra top end. And then so many other things coming. It's going to be a really good winter and spring, I think, for Smokin' and Toastin'. So we're looking forward to
excited.
it. In fact, we're booked so heavy with guests, it may be warm before we can do our pipe show. So
I'll go talk to them. We'll see if we can book that up pretty soon. That's okay. We'll be inside anyway.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So, Jason, thank you so much. We love the lines that you represent, and it's always fun to have people on when we're already kind of fanboys of the product, you know. And that's the case with both La Aguilera and my father. These are just such quality cigar lines.
Tell the Garcias I love them.
Yeah,
I will do that.
Yeah, and he means that too. It's not just a token expression. He's got genuine affection for those guys. And thank you. Please say hi to your brothers for us, and tell them we'd love to have them back on the show as well. And thank you again for for being such a great ambassador for great products like this.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having me on. It's been wonderful talking to you guys. I love this industry. I love the companies I work for. I think it is just I've been saying this for years. We're still enjoying the golden age of cigars.
I think
we
you're
really
absolutely
are.
right.
It's wonderful, and people who are listening in get to pick up a lot of new information from you guys. So you're doing a great job.
Well,
thank you very much for letting me be a part of it.
We are fans, and thank you again for being here. And thank you guys for hanging with us between the first episode and now 267 episodes of Smokin' and Toastin'.
No one's stopping us yet.
No one stopped us yet, which is another thing that reviewer guy seemed to have a problem with, is that we said that. I have no idea why. I don't know. I only read like the first.
Apparently,
third
we
of
can
the
be
review,
redundant.
But it reminded me why I don't read reviews. You know, it's just like, okay, thanks. Well, I'm guessing that guy is still with us, because there's something about, it's like all the people that used to hate the Howard Stern show, and they hated it every day for 4 hours. You know,
Yes.
It's kind of like that. Somehow, when you really hate something,
It's the Jerry Springer effect.
yeah, I think it is.
You don't want to watch it, you don't want to admit it, but you can't turn away.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, thank you guys for not turning away, and we will be back here next Thursday with another show. Jason, thank you for being here, and as we like to say, cheers, y'all.
Cheers, y'all.
Cheers.